We have questions and we have an open mic as well. So if you do have any question, please raise your hand. We have Q&A cards. You can fill your questions. We still have 15 more minutes. Inshallah, we'll spend them and focus on your questions. So I have 3 questions so far. And if you have, again, if you feel it's easier for you to share your question verbally, we do have an open mic as well. So I'll start with the first one, Sister Zahra, I think. Talking about, I'll generalize the question here. It's a little bit specific. We're talking about an accomplished person, a sister, young female who migrated recently into the United States, well-accomplished physician, full good track with academia, well-educated. She wants to help. Is there a place for her, knowing that she still have language barriers? And there might be other barriers. So in general, is there a place for such an activist or an interested person?
So I guess 2 answers. The first is specifically for someone who's a physician. A really good friend of ours is in a leadership position at a group called American Muslim Health Professionals, right? And so what they're saying, and some of you may remember this post 9/11, we said we have too many doctors and too many engineers. So a whole bunch of us became lawyers and social workers. The reality is some of you actually want to be doctors and you're better at biology than I am. Do something with that skill in particular. So what American Muslim Health Professionals does is works to make the medical services accessible to lots and lots of people. So I would say check them out. Now, if you're looking for something more broadly, honestly start local. Start in your community. Ask what kind of volunteers does my masjid need? What kind of volunteers is my local MAS chapter? Oh.
The session is recorded, yeah.
Great. So I just told the recording way too much stuff about my personal life. That's okay. But ask what kind of volunteers does my local MAS chapter, my local CARE chapter, my local American Muslims for Palestine chapter need. Start very locally, and you will find that there are lots of organizations that need help. And so hopefully an opportunity for you to get involved right away.
Another question, and maybe this is for Dr. Basyouny here. Talking about a woman who's trained, she's scholar, she's activist. However, talking about sacrifices that the family, especially the husband, has to go through. What kind of support, what kind of sacrifices a husband should provide to or need to help empower his wife?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think we should not say that the spouse should sacrifice in order to help actually his wife to be activist or to practice the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is, I call it, this is a mutual responsibility between wife and husband. They have to work together to uplift their iman and to fulfill their religious responsibilities. Enjoining good and forbidding evil or bad is one of our obligations as Muslim, male and female. It is not just for our brothers to practice al-amr al-ma'ruf and al-nahi an al-munkar. But we have to support one another, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah At-Tawbah, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. The believing men and believing women, they are supportive to one another. They have to support one another in enjoining good and forbidding evil, and in establishing as-salah, in giving zakah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by the way, at the end of this verse, there is a reward that we have to think about as Muslims in general. Allah says, أُولِئِكَ سَيَرْحَمُهُمُ اللَّهُ. Those who are taking these responsibilities together and working together, male and female, to fulfill their Islamic obligations, they will be qualified to receive the mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أُولِئِكَ سَيَرْحَمُهُمُ اللَّهُ. And sometimes in our household, we think or we complain that we are lacking this mercy. We do not have this mercy in our relationship with one another. And you have to go back and think, what is the reason behind this? Maybe because we are not supporting one another in doing good deeds. We are not working together, male and female, to serve our religion. We are not sacrificing together to fulfill our religious duties as Muslims. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying the reward, the outcome of working together, male and female, wife and husband together, is to gain mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This mawadda and rahmah, and second that we gain through our relationship, it is not just because we love one another, but because we support one another. We work together. We accomplish our mission together as Muslims on earth. We are fulfilling our responsibility in al-khilafah. You know al-khilafah? Khilafah is not Allah. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salam, he said, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. Not female khalifa or male khalifa. Khalifa means both, men and women. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Hawa, and both together worked towards the same mission, which is believing in Allah, worshiping Allah, inviting people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that requires a lot of sacrifice, a lot of understanding. And we have to be willing to do this, male and female.
Jazakallahu khairan. So next question, Sister Jan. You might want to read the question.
Sure, I think it's almost related, right?
Yeah.
So why are people afraid of female activists? What is it that they are unwilling to provide in a household? I've honestly heard a variety of things, like who will cook dinner if you have to work? Will you reduce your hours at work if we have kids? Who will pick the kids up from school? How will I deal with you being in the spotlight, right? That's a summary of what I have heard from a variety of people over the years. And I remember even when I was a younger activist before my first marriage, and to my ex-husband's credit, was a really good example. So one, before my first marriage, people said the same thing, right? And I know that men who are willing to not see it as a sacrifice, but actually approach it as a shared responsibility exist because of my father, because of my brother, and because honestly of my first husband, right? Where, what do you mean who's going to cook? We're going to cook together. And some days we're going to eat leftovers, right? Who's going to pick the kids up from school? We'll make carpool arrangements. We'll take turns, right? Will you reduce your hours? Why don't we talk about how both of us will reduce our hours so that we can be more active parents? Because in the same way that we shouldn't ask, in the same way that we expect women to provide for their families through love and care, we should also expect that of the men, right? Well, what do you mean he works all day and he's never at home, right? And how will you deal with her being in the spotlight? Honestly, some of the best answers I've gotten for that are also, I would be proud of her. I would encourage her. I would hold her purse. Yes, there are men like that who exist in our communities. I would hold her purse. I would make sure that she too has had time to eat and rest and be well. So a lot of it is, to my brother's point, really about reframing how we think about these things, is that they are not sacrifices, they are shared responsibilities. And if someone has the opportunity to be in family, whatever that means, to be in family with an activist, I would hope that they would see that relationship as an opportunity to be closer to good deeds and the service of our community and Allah.
Beautiful. Good. The question maybe Dr. Basyouny. Do we have institutional support for low and middle class families whose kids want to become Muslim scholars and leaders? These institutions have fees that is usually so high.
Yeah, one of our programs that we have at the Boston Islamic Seminary called actually the scholarship program. We are trying to approach the Islamic centers, the big Islamic organizations like MAS, like CARE, and asking them to at least sponsor two students from each masjid, each Islamic center or big Islamic institutions will make a big difference in our organization. We have a lot of students, and at the same time will help those who are seeking financial aid to find a place in our academic institution. And at the same time, for those who are wealthy, mashallah, and they have to think, if I do not have time to go and be part of this educational program, academic institution, I can sponsor a Muslim students who are qualified, inshallah, to be one of our future religious leaders, to lead our Islamic community in the future, either male and female. That is not just the responsibility of our small academic institution, because we are struggling as a small institution. We have a big mission, and still the financial element always is a big issue in our Islamic institutions in general. So we need your support, as Sister Zahra mentioned, financially and intellectually. And at the same time, you can approach some people who are qualified really to serve and support financially or intellectually, either to support some of our students or the organization in general.
Jazakumullah khair. The
Can
last
I add
question.
something really quick?
Oh, sure, please.
Oh, sorry.
I mentioned this about my brother, but we grew up middle class and we didn't have the money to actually go to an Islamic institution, right? And so he went to Pakistan for a year. It didn't go well. So he came back and he had memorized 7 juz. The remainder of the Quran he memorized at home while going to public school. So every day my mom would pick us up from public school. She would make sure that we had done our homework for public school. Then she would make sure that we were prepped for Quran class. And we would go to Quran class every day, Monday through Thursday. It took longer, but he finished by the time he was 12. And so for those of you who still can't access the programs, because even with the scholarships, there aren't enough scholarships, right? Know that you also have the opportunity and the ability to do it at home, that the internet has revolutionized the way we learn. There was no Quran teacher on like Skype available in the 90s when my brother and I were learning. And so take control of that. And my one regret of having stopped when I was 12 or 13 was that it was easier for me at that time. And so I take ownership of the fact that I stopped. You have the opportunity to take ownership to keep on learning.
Jazakumullah khair. You have a question, Yaqeen?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
We are from Miami, and is there a possibility to duplicate or offer these classes in a different city? Another question is, you chose the master's level, right? By the time people get to master level, they have progressed along in life. I'm thinking that if I have a son, I would love for him to go there with like associate degree level, so that they could count toward their maybe a bachelor's degree later, and also earlier on in life where they're still young, their knowledge would be very beneficial.
Barakallah fi. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakumullah khair.
First, we have the full-time program, the Masters in Islamic Religious Leadership, is just one of our academic offerings, but we have many different academic offerings beside this. First is we call it the graduate certificate, and it is about teaching the foundations of Al-Islam, about 5 courses, about the Quranic immersion, for example, introduction to Hadith and Sunnah. And this is one of the requirement for those who are interested to get the master's degree with us. They have to go through this certificate first. And second, we have the professional development certificate. Under this certificate, we have about 8 certificates, like public speaking certificate, educator certificate, youth leader certificate, and chaplain certificate, many different certificates to serve those who cannot have enough time to study with us as a full-time student. And those certificates will be offered online, and this is one of the next phase, inshallah, for the organization. For those certificates, the graduate certificate and the professional development certificates, those 2 programs will be offered online. We have another program, we call it the fellowship program, and this is based on profession. For the students, fellowship, they can come together for a program for about 1 year, and this program to serve them in 3 areas: text, what we call it read, and then tadabbar, reflect, and the third element of this program is act, and to prepare them to be activists, as our sister mentioned. And this program is customized based on profession. We have our physicians fellowship, for example, Muslim physicians fellowship, Muslim Engineers Fellowship. They spend time together, same background, same profession. We customize a curriculum that serves them based on their profession and it's taken from the Sunnah and Quran. For example, if you are a Muslim physician, what does Islam say about your position? What are the rules of Islam to serve you in this position as a student, as a physician, as engineer, as someone who is Muslim, a professional in this country. But the graduate program is easy to start with, but inshallah in our plan, maybe in the future, we'll think about the undergraduate program as well, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. We're coming to conclusion here, alhamdulillah. Want to thank you all for attending.